everybody. Welcome back to the Plotting Shed. My name's Rachel.
Hi, I am Isabel. We are two editors and coaches, and today we're going to be taking you through how to work with an editor, everything you need to know, what questions to ask, what to consider, what to look out for, and what the process looks like.
So, what do you look for in an editor? Isobelle?
There are so many things to keep in mind, but one of the most important ones is credentials. You want to know that they actually have experience, that they have worked in-house maybe, or that they have taken degrees and they've got actual qualifications. That could be either like a university degree. For example, Rachel has a PhD, a master's, and a bachelor. Or it could be something like editing specific courses. So there are lots of different organizations like the EFA, CIEP, and I've taken training through them. So you want to know that whoever your editor is, they've got a foundation, they've got a grounding and actual practical knowledge.
Absolutely. And then once you are kind of reaching out to them and talking to them, what you're looking for then is what are they an expert in, basically. So everybody has different areas of expertise. And some people might be a developmental editor, some people might be a line editor, some people might be a copy editor. And we'll talk a little bit about the differences between those in a moment. But you want to make sure that, first of all, they offer what you're looking for. Secondly, that they are familiar with the genre that you are working in. So if you're writing historical fiction, for example, there's no point in going to somebody who only works with crime and romance because they won't be as familiar and as kind of polished as somebody else who works with your genre all the time. And that's really what we're looking for. Somebody who's familiar with your genre so that they can help you with their knowledge. We're looking at budget as well. So we'll talk about budget later too, but do they fit your budget? There's editors who work with all sorts of budgets. You know, when I started my business, I charged below the standard rate so that I could gather testimonials. That's quite a normal thing to do. So if you are at the lower end of the budget and you have less available to spend, you'll still find somebody who could work really well with your work as well. And you should also look for, are they offering the kind of edit that you're looking for in terms of, are they offering you a written report if that's what you want? Or are they offering you coaching if that's what you want as well? There's lots of different ways that we could do this. Is there
Yes.
anything else?
You also want to look for testimonials because testimonials are also an indication that one, they've got the experience because they've done this before, but two, you want to know that other people had a good time, that they didn't just completely trash that person's book, that people have good things to say. So look for testimonials. You should find them on their website or on their social media. You could even ask to reach out to some of the authors they've worked with in the past, or you can ask to arrange a face-to-face video call with the editor to kind of get a bit more familiar because we are just on the internet and you want to make sure that they are legit. So it's important that they definitely have those testimonials to back it up. And you also want to make sure that their style is one that suits you. And this can be harder to gauge because it's very much dependent on the book and the individual. But some editors have a much more kind of tough love approach where they tell you that something's wrong and then kind of expect you to figure it out. Rachel and I don't have that approach. That's not really for us. We have the approach of explaining why something isn't working, offering suggestions, and we really try to be empathetic and kind of nurture our writers so they feel a bit more encouraged. So if you want a bit more of a softer approach, something that's a bit more tender, then you want to look for editors who do that. So it's worth asking when you reach out to an editor what their style is, what kind of feedback you can expect.
And they'll tell you as well. I mean,
Mm.
if someone came to me and said, I love tough love, I'd probably say I'm not the person for you then, because that's just not my personality. It doesn't
Mm.
sit well with me. So I don't know how I would ever do it. And that's okay. Everybody learns in different ways and everybody finds different things, hold them accountable. So basically, it's the best thing to do. Jump on a call, send them an email, talk to them, and try and find out if they're going to be a good match for you And then another thing to think about as well is when are you actually contacting them?
Mm,
Um, Editors and coaches, we do book up months and months in advance. Isabel and I both book up a year in advance. And it's really sad when someone jumps on a call with you and they are under the impression that you're kind of going to start working together next month, because that's never really the case. It's always going to be at least 6 months down the line. So I would start to look at your work, think about what you want and what you need, and then I would start to say, okay, so if I look at my calendar, when can I do this? And reach out as early as possible. In a way, it's never too early to reach out, because all you can do is pop down a deposit and know that that date is safe. And then you can kind of crack on with whatever things that you need to do in your novel.
exactly. And if you're like me, and maybe Rachel, I work really well to a deadline. That if I know I've got that edit coming in March 2026, you better believe I'm going to have my book ready. So it is also a good motivation boost.
Absolutely. Oh, I love a deadline. I love a deadline. So how do you find or contact an editor?
There are lots of different ways. We can be all over the place. So some of us are really prominent on social media, like Instagram or TikTok, Twitter or whatever the other ones are now that keep popping up. Or you might have their websites. You can do a Google search, obviously, for a developmental editor of fantasy and be kind of specific and niche. Or you can look through sites like the CIEP or EFA, and they will have a list. So how do you like to be found, Rachel?
So you can find me in a few different ways. I'm on Readsy, which is a very useful site if you're looking for an editor of all different types. I've hired editors through there as well for my own work. And that's really useful because it has things like testimonials and books that you can see what books they've worked on and things like that. You can also find me on social media, and if you Google as well, you'll find me. So those are the kind of main ways that you would find me. Rarely do I go to kind of in-person conferences to kind of sell my business. I haven't found the need to do that. But there are lots of different ways. There are websites as well, like Fiverr and Upwork. I would really make sure that you're looking at the testimonials with everything, essentially. Make sure that you are keeping an eye on those so that you can just know that this is the best person for you.
And then, as we mentioned before, there are a few different types of editing. So when you are reaching out to look for an editor, you want to be looking, as Rachel said, for their expertise in their genres, but you also want to make sure that they actually do the editing that you want.
Mhm.
Um, so, Rach, what's the first stage edit that someone should have?
It's a dev edit, so a developmental edit. Lots of people call it a dev edit. I do as well. A developmental edit is really the point where you've written maybe the first, second draft of your novel and you want someone to read through it and to say to you, okay, this is working really well, but the structure is a little bit off. This is where we move this piece here. They're looking at characterization, narrative, dialogue, essentially everything that makes up a novel. But because it's in the draft stage, it's your opportunity to kind of pull it apart and put it back together in the best possible way. I often think of it like a puzzle, like you've been given a puzzle and you're taking the puzzle apart so that you can fit it back together again. And a developmental editor will help you do that. We do work in different ways. So you either will get a full report or you'll do something that's called a live dev edit, which is what I offer. And essentially, that is coaching through the edits and the changes. So it really depends on how you work and what's best for you. If you're somebody who works full time, maybe, and what you would find most useful is self-led editing through a report, that would be for you. So do find out what is it that this person is offering and how is it going to work best for me.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
what's next?
Next, you can do, it's not essential, but you can do something called a manuscript assessment. And this is like a light developmental edit. So maybe you've already had a developmental edit, you've made all those big changes, and you just need another look at the book. You just need another once over to green tick, you're ready to go. Or maybe you aren't yet ready for someone to give you all that big advice because you know that the book is a little bit messy, you're not really sure about everything, and you just want to dip your toe in it. Then a manuscript assessment is a really good option. because it covers all those big picture elements that Rachel mentioned that the developmental edit does, but it's not quite as intense with the level of feedback. There's usually less inline comments, so your manuscript is actually going to be quite clean. And the bulk of the feedback will be some kind of written feedback, like a chapter breakdown or hitting on those creative elements again. So it's worth discussing with your editor which one might be better if they offer both.
Yeah. Then we kind of start to look at line edits. Line edits are, it's just what it says, basically. It's going through your work line by line. Not everybody does this, but it is a very powerful kind of editing technique, essentially, to make your work as strong as it possibly is, because what you're focusing on is clarity. So it's clarity, and is this sentence the best it can possibly be? And line editing is something that people offer, and a lot of those people also offer copy editing. Some of those people offer copy editing and line editing together. Copy editing is probably one of my least favorite things in the world. It's like, does this comma go here? Is that in the right place? Is the grammar stuff? It's not the funnest thing. Some people love that stuff, and that's fine. Um,
We need them.
we do need them, but I don't want to do it myself specifically. And the next thing is proofreading.
Yes. And proofreading is the absolute last step. So this is right before you want to publish, and this isn't the time to be restructuring sentences. This is just catching those final little mistakes, those commas, those capital letters that didn't make it in. And if you are self-publishing, then formatting and proofreading will usually go side by side as well. So it's worth reaching out to a formatter to find out if they want you to proofread first or to proofread afterwards, because some of them do have a preference. And obviously, if you are traditionally publishing, then someone else will be taking care of your proofreading for you.
Yes, and I would also say as well, in terms of hiring someone to proofread for you, I would say try and hire someone who hasn't done any of the other editing stuff for you, because their eyes are fresher.
Mm.
Super difficult to proofread. It's hard to see those misspelled things, and sometimes those words are real words. They're just the wrong word. So, like, you might be saying dairy instead of diary, for example, and that kind of thing is hard to see with the human eye. So, try and find someone who's fresh to your work so that their eyes are sharper. So then we're going to talk about editor and writer etiquette. By
Mhm.
this we mean if you reach out to an editor, and we do recommend reaching out to a few because there are lots of different editors in the world, and you may as well try and find the best one for you. So what I always say on a discovery call is this isn't a sales pitch. I'm just telling you how I can help you. And if you want to work with me, you'll come back to me and let me know. What we would say is, as editors, it's really lovely when people do let us know when they don't want to work with us as well. Because actually, if we're just ghosted, we don't know where we are in the scenario. We may be in a situation where we think that somebody might be interested in the date and be uncomfortable with booking somebody else in for it. So please do. If you reach out to someone and you actually decide, "Do you know what, they're not for me, or maybe this isn't the right time, or I've decided to go with somebody else," just send an email. And that editor will be so grateful to you.
Yes, there's absolutely no hard feelings, and really, it's helpful for us because maybe it's something that we can work on. If there was something about our style that just didn't resonate with you, or if it's the price, if it's the timeline. We have a lot of people who want to work with us earlier, and then we say, sorry, we're not available for another 11 months. And that's okay. So your editor should be okay with being rejected, because it's part of the job. And if they do try to pressure you or make you feel uncomfortable, then you wouldn't want to work with them anyway.
Absolutely. They're not for you if that's the case. Um, be prepared as well when you reach out to an editor and you're kind of in this stage to put down a deposit. I would say pretty much all editors will ask you to put down a deposit to save a date, and they will also send you a contract. In fact, they should send you a contract. So make sure that you read through their contract, you're happy with it. If they don't send you a contract, I would be a bit concerned because contracts are for your safety as well as theirs. And another thing to kind of think about when you're looking for an editor is using writerbeware.com. They're amazing and they work really hard to keep writers safe. So if you're ever unsure of anyone, an agent, a publisher, an editor, a coach, search their name on Writer Beware. And, if they come up, if there has been something that hasn't worked in the past, you can read about it and you can make sure that you're staying safe with your money because that's really important.
Yes. So when it comes time then to actually contact the editor, there are a few things that we really like to see in an email that really helps us to give you the best possible response. So we want to know what genre you're writing because it's hard then for us to know how best to help you and if we can even help you if we don't know what your genre is. What the word count is, so we can estimate how long it's going to take and also how much it's going to cost because a lot of us charge by word and by hour. Um, we also want to know a little bit about the book and also some content warnings as well. If there are some things that are quite sensitive in the book and could be quite triggering to some people, it's important that you're telling the editor that because we don't want to be surprised halfway through the book and then feel uncomfortable moving forward with the project. We also want to know of any deadlines that you might have. If you have a strict, I need to publish by January 2026, we want to know that so that we also know, can we fit around your schedule? Is there any kind of wiggle room? Um, Also, which service you might be interested in, or if you're not sure, you can just tell us where you are in your writing journey, like you've just started and it's not really going very well and you just need some help getting to the end. And any kind of writing concerns that you have, maybe you feel like your characterization isn't very strong or your plot feels a little bit messy. So it's really helpful for us to know as much information as possible so that we can give you the best response and know how best to help you.
And something to be aware of as well is that, I mean, for myself, I work Monday to Friday between 9 and 6. So those are the hours that I am available to take calls as well. If you also have a full-time job, it's worth thinking, okay, so if I'm going to take on a live developmental edit with an editor, for example, when do I actually have space to meet with them? When do we have time for those coaching hours? Because if that doesn't fit in with your schedule, then I'm probably not the best person for you. But there
Mm,
are other people who will have slightly different hours. Maybe they're in a different part of the world. And I live in the UK. So if you were somewhere like New Zealand, it might be a bit tricky for us to meet. So are you comfortable with meeting late at night, for example? So I meet you early in the morning. These are the things to think about, and to let us know in the email as well.
mm, definitely. But as much as it's important for you to be trying to be the best possible potential client for us, it's also really important that you are aware of the editor being the best possible editor for you. So what would be a major red flag, Rach?
Um, A major red flag for me personally would be somebody who is reluctant to show me testimonials,
Mm,
someone who doesn't give me a contract, and somebody who is pushy with me, because there's no need. There's lots of people who do this job. So you need to make sure that they're making you feel comfortable, essentially. There's no need to be pushy. I would also want someone to respond to me in a fairly timely manner. So anything more than a week, unless they were on holiday and had an out of office on, I would want something a little bit quicker than that. That's my personal preference, perhaps.
mm.
Isabel, any you would add?
For me, it's the tone. It's how they respond. I find that really important. So if I'm reaching out to them and I'm really bubbly and happy and like, oh wow, I'm so excited to work with you. This is everything about my book, and they just say, yep, I can fit you in at this time for these dates at this much. I don't feel that connection. I don't feel like they're necessarily happy or excited. They're not really saying anything about like, oh, I love the sound of your book or anything that makes me feel like I'm being seen and that they want to work with me for any reason other than the fact that they would be getting paid. Um, so yeah, the way that they communicate is definitely important. For me personally, maybe other people might have a different approach, but I want someone to be a bit happy.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And then we're kind of talking about turnaround times. Obviously, it does vary. If you've written a really, really long 200,000 word book, you can expect a turnaround time to be longer. That just kind of goes without saying. So turnaround time of reading a work and editing it for me personally is 4 weeks if it's 80,000 words. During that time, I'm reading it a few times, I'm making all my notes, and I'm collating my ideas. And I need space to do that because sometimes I have my best ideas about something when I'm on a dog walk, for example, and you kind of need to ruminate on these things. So I need that space. Sometimes, if it's a very long novel or a very complicated novel with dark themes, I'm going to ask for a little bit longer, more like 6 weeks, because I need time to take breaks for my own personal health. That's a huge thing. If you're writing about dark, serious themes, your editor may give you a longer turnaround time so that they can keep themselves well, because it's not easy to edit dark things. You've got to really give yourself the opportunity to take a break, take a step away, and to kind of focus.
Mm.
How about you, Isabel?
So, because I do a written report, whereas Rachel does her live kind of feedback, I take a little bit longer because I need to write the report. So, I would usually take about 6, 7 weeks, because 2 or 3 of those weeks are going to be writing the report. And the report is hefty. We are talking like over 15,000 words, and there's just so much that needs to go into it. And I need that time to ruminate on the book and make sure that I am assessing everything and I've covered all my bases and I'm giving the best advice to the writer. So, depending on the service, then obviously turnaround time will be different. It also depends as well on how the book is written. If it's a certain type of kind of like literary or a voice that is unique, then it might be a bit harder for me to kind of get into it as much, and I might need some more time. If the book is very, very clean, and it's being revised a lot, then that's usually going to take less time because it's going to be a lot easier to get through. So there are a lot of factors, and some editors only work on one book at a time, others work on multiple, so that's also another consideration as well.
So the difficult conversation of price, it's really expensive to hire an editor. It just is. And the fact is that unless you're self-publishing, if you're self-publishing, you probably do need an editor,
Mm.
because you want this to be the best it could possibly be. You're essentially taking on all of the things that a traditional publisher might do for you, and that includes editing. I mean, obviously, you know about the marketing and the covers and all that stuff, and the editing is maybe a bit that isn't like the most amazingly fun bit, but it is a really important piece of the puzzle when it comes to writing a novel. If you're going down the traditional publishing route and you are looking for an agent, it can also help to have your work edited. You don't have to. And I don't want anyone watching this to be under the impression that you do have to, because you definitely don't. So it's up to you,
Mm.
100%. The dev edit, if we're talking around kind of 80,000 words, which is like the average that we might kind of work with when we're talking about a novel length, the low end of this would be £1,650. And in USD, that would be 2,200. And the high end would be £2,360, and the USD would be 3,160. So these figures are from the EFA, which is basically the standard rates for an editor. So if you were finding someone at the low end, it might mean that they have just started their business, perhaps they have slightly less experience. If you were talking about the high end, you're talking about someone with a lot of experience, someone who is kind of years into their business, has a lot of testimonials and clients. And that's kind of the average. There's obviously people who are in the middle, and there are obviously going to be people who are higher than the high end, and there's going to be people who are lower than the low end. But these are the averages of how much you can expect to spend. I would say that most editors and coaches offer payment plans. But apart from that, like and subscribe. Don't be afraid to say hello. And if you want to check out our individual editing services, please do check out our websites.
Awesome. And we'll see you in our next video.
Bye.